Recently, I've been diving into the very foundation of modern computing, and I've stumbled into something that feels overlooked. By far, one of the most important ideas, and yet almost no one is talking about it. For the last 50 years, everything you touch, your phone, your laptop, the entire internet has been powered by transistors. Tiny devices that rely on one fundamental property of electrons, their charge. But what if I told you that's only scratching the surface? And there is another equally fundamental property, its spin, that most people have never even heard of. If electronics has defined the last 50 years, today we will explore a new technology that could spark an entirely new chapter, advancing everything from classical to probabilistic to even quantum computing. This makes my head spin just thinking about it. Despite the name, spin doesn't mean that the electron is spinning around. It's its quantum property, kind of a built-in compass that can point north or south, up or down. You can imagine it like a tiny magnet that can point north or south. And it turns out the spin state can be used to store information, just like zeros and ones in your computer, but with an interesting twist. Let me put my spin on that. If we take this phone with A18 chip inside, or ChatGPT which is running on GPUs, pretty much in every modern application we use the electron's charge to process and store data. But it takes quite some time and energy to move this charge, and also generates a lot of heat. The bottom line is, what if instead of charge, we could use its spin? This would be brilliant, because unlike charge, spin stays in the same place. So it takes way less energy to move it. And this is the core idea behind spintronics. What's interesting, in traditional electronics, moving a charge means physically pushing electrons through a circuit. And as you can imagine, this creates resistance, friction, and heat, which is why your laptops get hot. But in spintronics, we are using the spin of one electron to nudge another one into a new direction. And because it's a quantum effect, it strongly correlates with quantum mechanics. And this is what's making it so powerful. In fact, it's not an entirely new technology. It's already been used in hard drives, which allowed us to pack more storage in a given area. However, the recent advancements in the field show that we can use this same technology for the next-gen computing. Now, if we zoom out and look at the bigger picture, demand for AI computing is exploding, and everyone is looking for new paradigms to make it more efficiently. I've already covered the most promising technologies on this channel, so make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss what's next in technology. And make sure to watch till the end to enter a very exciting giveaway. If we look at the bigger picture, one of the biggest bottlenecks in AI computing today is that memory and processing are physically separate. This means every time your computer does something, it has to constantly move data back and forth between the processor and memory, and this takes a lot of time, it's slow, and it burns energy. Now, if we use this new computing approach, if we use spin, it turns out we can build chips where memory and computing are combined. And that unlocks an entirely new way of computing. Just think about it. If I ask you, what is 7 times 8? The answer just pops up in your head, like this, 56. And that's happening so fast because the data is stored at the same place where it's processed, in neurons and synapses in your brain. And there is no delay from shuffling data back and forth like this happening in a computer. And that's why our brain is so incredible. In contrast, a computer will store this data in memory, and then CPU has to fetch this data, process it, and then send the result back. And these back and forth take a lot of time and energy, especially in AI workloads, where we deal with massive amounts of data, like trillions of parameters. And that's why we get inspired by our brain, where each neuron is a processor and a memory at the same time. And it turns out we could build this kind of system if we add spin, electron spin, into the mix. Now, let me break down how it actually works and why I find this approach so fascinating. Actually, there are many flavors of this technology, but in the most recent work, the most promising technology is based on so-called MGTs, magnetic tunnel junctions, and those are based on magnetic states. And it turns out these devices, MTGs, are already widely adopted by companies around the world at a mass production scale. And this is great news. The fundamental device itself consists of 2 layers of a special material, separated by an ultra-thin insulating barrier. And this barrier is typically 1 nanometer thin or even thinner. An easy way to think about it, you imagine a flat with 2 rooms and 1 door in between. So imagine in each of the rooms there is a spin. And if spins, both of them, in 2 rooms, point in the same direction, it means that the door is open and the current can flow through it. This is our 0. And in case the spins are pointing to opposite directions, the door is locked. And this is our 1. And the cool part is, even if you cut the power, spin stays in the place. This device doesn't forget anything. Everyone has this kind of friend, who still brings back what you said back in 2010. Now, why do I say that manipulating a spin is such a big deal? Because now, in transistor technology, we are scaling beyond 2 nanometers and actually entering angstrom era. And here things start to get really weird, because we bump into very strong effects of quantum mechanics. And one of the wildest effects here is quantum tunneling. It's when an electron passes through a barrier it shouldn't. Just imagine being able to walk through a wall. And this is a big problem, because it causes devices to leak and makes them very hard to control, and this is one of the biggest limits as to how far we can keep scaling the transistor technology. But here is a twist. While shrinking breaks classical transistors, it actually helps spintronic devices, because these devices are built on this very fact. So instead of fighting quantum tunneling, they are making use of it. In this new approach, electrons don't need to move physically. They just tunnel through this tiny insulating barrier we discussed. And whether they get through or not depends on the spin. This makes these devices perfect for sub-nanoscale operation, because the thinner the barrier, the further we scale it, the better the device performs. So it's not just efficient, it's inherently scalable. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And that's where it gets very interesting, because when we mix classical computing with quantum mechanics, it turns out that we can write data in these devices, but at the same time we can do also computing with them. And it turns out, if we take this device and connect many of them in a row, we can implement with it so-called in-memory computing, the approach we've just discussed. Next, we will discuss how it actually works and some powerful and unexpected applications of this technology. But first, let's discuss the chips that's powering the progress already right now. If you've been following the updates from AMD's recent Advancing AI event, which was beautiful, the momentum is hard to ignore. And it's all about technology. Whether you're building a startup like me or leading a global enterprise, in 2025, the technology your business runs on matters more than ever. And that's where AMD comes in. Laptops powered by AMD Ryzen PRO processors deliver everything a modern business needs: efficiency, security, and AI readiness. At the core of the AMD Ryzen PRO processor is the cutting-edge architecture that integrates the CPU, GPU, and a dedicated NPU neural processing unit on a single chip, enabling AI-powered application performance up to 1.8 times faster directly on your PC without relying on external hardware. It delivers up to 8 times faster speeds in AI workloads like Stable Diffusion and up to 3 times higher gains in creative applications like DaVinci Resolve compared to Intel's i9. Even in machine learning benchmarks like Geekbench ML, AMD leads with up to 8 times faster AI processing. And that's kind of speed that translates directly into the real-world productivity. These laptops offer extended battery life for all-day use, 6 layers of built-in hardware-level security, and full readiness for Windows 11. As you may know, support for Windows 10 is ending already this October, and sticking with old hardware can expose your business to security risks. So now is the perfect time to boost your productivity and security with new AMD Ryzen PRO laptops. Right now, AMD offering businesses an opportunity to see the impact firsthand with their free loaner program. Just click the link below to get a Ryzen PRO laptop, put it to test, and experience all the benefits it can bring to your business. Honestly, I'm super excited to work with AMD on this campaign because it's just the best technology, the best product, and the most amazing people behind, the most amazing team. So I feel very blessed. So make sure to check out their offer through the link below or scan the QR code here. And thank you, AMD, for sponsoring this video. Spintronics is fascinating, and it opens up a whole new frontier for computing. What makes it so exciting is its deep overlap with quantum mechanics. So now let's zoom in and see how the computing actually works. Let's say we want to compute multiply two matrices using this technology. To do this, we will use a small grid 2x2 of these devices. These devices store weights, while inputs comes in the rows. Imagine each device acts as a tiny switch. So what happens? When we apply the input signals, the input 1 to the first device, it lets the current flow. That's our multiply. And when we apply the input 0 to the second device, it doesn't let current through. And that's a 0. At the end, we add up currents at the output, and this is actually the multiply-accumulate operation. And what do we have? We have the multiply-accumulate operation done in spintronic, so in analog way, using spins, and this is the core operation behind all modern AI workloads. And the beauty of this approach is that the processing is done in memory, without any shuffling the data around, so it's very efficient and cool. And we can do that, we can flip the spin state in just picoseconds. Very fast, very efficient, way faster than moving around the charge or dealing with resistive memory. This is what makes this approach so attractive. Consider that till now, one of the most obvious applications of spectronics was memory, just memory, because instead of using electric charge, we can store bits using spin, up for 1, down for 0. That's how magnetoresistive memory works. It's fast, durable, and keeps data even without power. It's already used in hard drives and being tested in aircrafts, phones, and cars. But now, based on the progress from this paper and a bunch of others I read last week, we start to use this technology for computing. And it doesn't stop there, because researchers are exploring other, more radical ways to use it for computing. One of the most exciting of this is probabilistic computing. This is the approach where we, instead of fighting noise, right, like in case of quantum computers, they are very sensitive to noise. So instead of fighting noise, we harness noise from the environment and use it to perform computations. Fascinating approach. It turns out it's a great match for problems like route optimization, think about finding the most optimal route for the Uber, or powering generative AI models like diffusion-based models, where you start by first adding noise to the image and then work backwards to create an image. I actually broke down this technology in a full episode on the channel, so hit the subscribe button right now to catch up later on. And then things started to spin out of control. It turns out spintronic advances chaos computing. Yeah, that's a real thing. And since spin is a quantum property, there is a strong connection to quantum computing. And I'm especially excited about the spin qubit approach that Intel is working on. They're actually building a quantum computer using quantum dot technology, basically encoding information inside the spin of a single electron. And the best part, it's built on silicon technology. That's why I see so much potential in this, because this is the material we already know very well how to build at scale. This one thing makes it way more promising from commercial perspective than any other exotic quantum hardware. So yeah, spintronics is not just a new technology, it's a whole new way of thinking about computing. Now let me know, have you ever heard of it? And are you as excited as I am? Let me know in the comments. Of course, there are still a lot of challenges related to this technology. The main ones are related to manufacturing and reliability. As we've discussed, these devices built from materials just a few atoms thick. And if you have a chip with billions of devices, even tiny variations in material at this scale can make switching unpredictable. You know, this tunnel barrier through which electrons tunnel through needs to be 1 nanometer thick or even thinner for fast switching, but that makes it fragile and limits how many times we can actually use it. Manufacturing is another great challenge because spintronics materials don't always play well with a semiconductor manufacturing process, and these might be very tricky to integrate it with the current technology and to scale it. But when it comes to classical, commercially ready magnetic-resistive memory we've just touched upon, we are already seeing real progress. For example, Everspin Technologies is producing such devices at scale, even at 28 nanometers and below, in partnership with global foundries. So yes, it's not just theoretical anymore, it's manufacturable at scale, and it's only getting smaller and smaller. And I almost forgot about this one. Another challenge is, of course, controlling the spin, especially at scale, right? When we're talking about billions of devices. So here there's been also exciting progress. Researchers from Japan found a way, surprising way, to do it with lasers. They found a way to control spin patterns into thin semiconductor layers using beams of light. Imagine it like writing magnetic textures with photons. And this is a very promising step towards a spin-based transistor, though so far it's working only at very low temperatures. So the next step would be to make it work at room temperature. Now, let's talk investment angle. Not financial advice as always, just sharing my take. We see that spintronic research is experiencing rapid growth. And while it's still early, in my opinion, the first real impact won't be in logic devices or next-gen computing. First of all, the real impact will show up in 3 main areas: memory, quantum computing, and sensors. On the public markets, a few companies are already making moves, just some companies to keep an eye on. First of all, worth keeping an eye on Everspin Technologies. Everspin Technologies is a pure-play memory company, and their technology is already used in some IoT chips. Then NV Corporation, focusing on spintronic sensors and memory. And finally, Micron and IBM are also doing deep research into quantum and spin-based logic. Then there is a bunch of startups worth keeping an eye on, like Spin Memory and Avalanche Technology. It's still very early stage, yes, but if you're tracking the next wave of AGI hardware and quantum technologies, this is a space to watch. And of course, I'm looking forward to share with you more on that soon. And now I want to announce a giveaway where you can win some really cool presents. To enter, you need to share this video and tag me on any social media you use. The more, the better. Like LinkedIn, X, Instagram, whatever you use. And then you need to drop it in the Google form, which is linked in the description below. And then you have a chance to win this stunning piece of art, 12-inch silicon wafer. I will send it to you. And one of 2 books by Reid Hoffman. Really fantastic read. I already gifted it to some of my friends. Yes, it's that good. It's a very good one if you're interested in tech and investing in tech. Well, now I'm off to Stanford for a while, so make sure to subscribe because the next episode I will be recording directly from Stanford. Thank you so much for your support. Love you guys, and we'll see you in the next one. Ciao!